square bracket.
Okay, everyone, welcome in. Let's jump straight into it and review what DAX is and some of the key ideas and concepts around how you can learn it. Okay, so I'll just give you a bit of an overview here and some ideas that I want you to embed in your mind around the DAX formula language. And then from this base knowledge, you're going to have a much clearer pathway, or see a much clearer pathway to how you need to implement it, and then how we can then use the specifics around formulas and patterns, etc. Okay, so what you can achieve with DAX, okay? DAX is an incredibly powerful language, and if you've come from any sort of Excel background, which I'm sure the majority of you have, you will quickly learn that DAX is far more superior. Using DAX inside Power BI is far more superior to any Excel-based formulas, okay? It's just so much more scalable, so much more effective when wanting to run lots of calculations very quickly over your data, okay? So DAX enables you to create advanced analysis quickly by writing relatively straightforward code or formula, okay? You can call it either. The trick is to understand when and where to use particular formula. Okay, so once you learn the formula, it's just about implementing it in the right place, understanding first of all what you want to see, what you want to calculate, and then implementing the right formula in that location. And then once you know that, then that's where the scale comes in, because you can reuse those ideas, reuse those formulas, reuse those patterns in the same situations, in the same data scenarios. The DAX calculation engine is extremely fast and powerful, so that goes back to what I just mentioned. It is so fast and is just so much more scalable, as I say, than Excel formulas, because what you'll see and what you'll find is that it can one formula can calculate so much. It just depends on how you use it and where you place it, and it actually can do the calculation so fast over a lot of data, which is very different to, say, Excel, where if you get lots of data and you're looking to run lots of formulas over those big data sets, you run into lots of errors, and your Excel files blow out and they become very inefficient. Well, Power BI, and especially the way DAX works with Power BI, can prevent a lot of that. When combined with a best practice data model, there is no faster way to get the insights that you need, right? Okay, so this combines all of these things prior to this, right? Like if you set up your Power BI model well, then the DAX formula language can calculate things seriously fast and find exactly the insights that you need really effectively, okay? So there's just a bit of an overview, something to have a good think about, and hopefully, I'm hoping very quickly you're going to see how good utilizing even simple formula can be so effective. But then how far you can actually take your analytical work when you start using more advanced DAX formulas. And we're going to cover all of that within this course. So this is a very comprehensive course, which will give you everything you need, all of the theoretical background of how DAX works to also how you implement it, all the practical applications of how you can extract the good insight from your Power BI reports. Okay, so let's just move on to the next one. So I just want to start here, okay, and just review some of the key concepts when learning DAX, okay. These are, in my view, these are quite unique to how I like to discuss and go over DAX, but in my view are essential, right? Okay, these are just the essential concepts that you really want to just never forget, okay? Because these are the things you need to keep reminding yourself as you're learning things, that these are the key things, these are the key things to implement when utilizing these formulas. So the first one is understanding context, okay? There is nothing more important than understanding what the context is within your report pages, or the context in which a formula is calculating, okay? You have to know that. That is almost as key a concept as just the DAX language in its entirety. Okay, you have to know in what way, in what environment a formula is calculating. And we will cover that quite in depth because of how important it is. Start with simple functions and then branch out into more advanced formula. Okay, so you may have heard me talk about this before, but I'm very against you trying to get calculated results without it being an actual DAX formula. Okay, so you don't want to be just dragging columns or like physical columns into your reports and trying to calculate something with the native calculation engine that is in Power BI. You want to be using DAX in all situations. The main reason for this is because the simple formulas are the beginnings of anything advanced. Okay, you don't just want to go advanced straight away. You want to start simple and then branch out into more advanced calculations. There is a difference between calculated columns and measures, okay? Now, calculated columns calculate one way and measures calculate another way. The best way, the thing we'll be covering more in this course are sort of measures, because that is predominantly where you will use DAX. You will use formula a little bit in calculated columns, but you don't need to use calculated columns anywhere near as much as you think, okay? And so measures are these virtual calculations that you can do within your reports, and that's predominantly where you want to be using all of the great techniques around using DAX and getting great insights from utilizing formulas. The most used function will be calculate. Understanding this brings immense analytical power to your work, okay? What calculate works in with this concept of context, in that you have some initial context that is created by the environment that you've got in your reports, like what's selected in your reports, but then what calculate can do within that environment is it can change the context, okay? And because of how important this function is, we'll be having a pretty detailed section on just this one function, or a lot of videos on this function around how to use it. And then as we get more and more through the course, you'll see that this is just this function is used so much because of just how important it is to every single thing that is advanced. Things like time intelligence or grouping techniques or attrition analysis, all of these great things, right, that will somewhat be covered here and likely in other courses as well, as we get to more advanced analytical concepts that you can go to when you use formulas really powerfully. Okay, so that's just going to run off this particular video. This is just a starter, just to give you an overview of some of the what you can get out of DAX, and some of the key things around how to learn it. I guess just to round things off here is just to stress the importance of using DAX. Like if you're not using formulas within DAX formulas within your reports, you're honestly missing about 90% of the analytical potential of using Power BI itself. Okay, I know that DAX is not the only sort of pillar to using Power BI well, but it is an essential part of using it seriously effectively. Okay, so really diving into the content in this course and maybe reviewing this multiple times over an extended period of time is a good idea, because these are just really key concepts. And one of the other things is, and I'll probably mention this again, is just how important practice is. Practicing utilizing formula in real world situations with real world data is vitally important. Okay, right. Okay, so let's run this off and we'll just jump into the next one. Okay, just a brief recap here of some easy topics, right? Data types and operators. Okay, so essentially what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring some data in. So this is the data that we'll be using. So this is in the resource pack that hopefully you've downloaded, and we'll be using this data just to run through all of the formula techniques that we're going to discuss throughout this course, right? Okay, and the idea here is we need to bring it in and bring it into our model, and I'm going to just show you some simple things around just understanding data types and making sure that they are correct. Okay, we're not going to go over obviously the query editor and other pillars and to developing key reports. This is a DAX focused course, so I'm just going to quickly just go through some of I'm just going to quickly go through this this part of getting my data in, and then we will discuss the key points in this particular video. So I'm just going to go and grab an Excel file. So I'm just going to navigate to where I've got that particular file located. Oh, I've got to actually delete my report page. Sorry. So you should be able to do this. This is covered in detail in the Power BI workshop course, so definitely recap that if you want a revision on how this all works. But I'm sure if you're really diving into the DAX formula language, you've got a reasonable understanding of this. Okay, so we'll bring data in here. Now, Power BI does do this pretty well. Okay, so there isn't something you really need to adjust or update here, but I want to just make you aware of where things can go wrong if you're just not sure. Okay, and you could get random errors, and it's just something to just be aware of. Okay, and it's the data types. Okay, so this is some great updates within the query editor itself, is they actually show you what data type you have with an image, which is quite good. Okay, so you see here I've got order date. These are actually dates, which as they should be, and you can also see that up here, which is data type date. And as you click through, you can see okay, this is a number, which is absolutely fine. That's good. And this is text, which is what we want. And the key thing here really is just making sure that your numeric columns, especially, so the columns where you're going to probably do some sort of aggregation or some sort of calculation. So things like we've got price here, we've got order quantity, right? So we might want to count up the quantity. We've got total revenue, we've got total unit cost. So all of these data types are values, right? They're values that we can then place into formula to then run a calculation, right? If these columns are mistakenly text, for example, well, then your DAX formula isn't going to work. So this is the area we want to just check this stuff and make sure it's right. Okay, you want to do most of this within the query editor. Okay, this is the perfect area to do this sort of stuff. If you want to change things, it's very easy. You just have to click now on these icons, and then you have all of the different options in which you can change things to. You've also got you can change it here too. So you've got data type up here, right? Then we want to obviously close and apply. So I'm not making any other updates here, but obviously I would really change things into good naming conventions. I might cover that shortly. How I would adjust that, but I'm just going to close and apply here and bring this into my model. And as that loads, it's just loading into my model. I won't do anything to the actual model itself at the moment, but another place where you can go and change your data types, it's very easy, just within the data itself. So I've just gone to the data section. I can then select a particular column, and then I have this is relatively new actually. I have these new ribbons where I can go and change the data type here. Okay. And I can also change the format if I want as well. And this is an interesting thing to have a think about is maybe you want to make this currency, or you might want to make it into something else, depending on what that value is. And even though it doesn't really matter here because we're never going to drag this column as I was saying, you don't want to drag this column into your reports to run any calculation. But I guess it just makes things a little bit neater, and it makes columns more easily identifiable in terms of what they are. Okay, so this is just a quick video, just a quick recap. Don't want to spend too much time on it, and let's just move on to the next section where we can discuss a bit more about diving into some best practices around just general stuff around formulas. Okay, so now I just want to give you a really important tip, okay, and it's all about naming conventions, okay. Now, the best practices from my point of view, right, is you always want to have as good a naming conventions as you possibly can, and I want to show you why, okay. If I go new measure here, I'm just going to create some random measure, okay? I'm going to calculate up my total sales example, okay, it's just an example. I'm going to go sum, and then you'll see here that the IntelliSense is really good here, right, but IntelliSense is only good if the names are really intuitive, okay? And when I say intuitive, I just mean like proper format. I mean no underscores, no random names, just no abbreviations, all those types of things, right? Because what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to just very quickly go and reference exactly what type of column you want. So for example, say for I want this column here, sales underscore data total revenue. Basically what I want to do though is I just want to find revenue, so I'm just going to type REV, and that's going to essentially give me what I need, right? So think about this. If you didn't have, and think about this is just not you developing it, could be someone else in your organization, could be a colleague. You just need to make things as intuitive as possible, so that when someone utilizes the great features around IntelliSense to quickly write formula, they can just write the start of something, and they know exactly what they can go and find, right? But the other thing that you need to be aware of here as well is that you want things as simple as possible. You want things as simple as possible. And this underscore data makes no sense, or some sort of abbreviation makes no sense. It just needs to be structured in a way where everything is just so seamless. Like, so when someone's reading the particular formula, they know exactly what they're actually looking at. Okay. And so I'll show you some tips around what I would do. There's a number of different places you can update things. You can update things within this particular area, but the best place to update most of the naming conventions early on is in the query editor. Okay. So I just get to the query editor, I just click on transform data, and then what I do is, if you've gone through the Power BI workshop, you've probably seen this already. Sorry. You just need to first of all what I do is I just change the table names to things that make complete sense, right? And so I first of all just I'm updating names. So you can also double click in here as well if you want. And so it all starts with the table names, because remember you're referencing tables and columns within Power BI. And so I quickly just adjust those. And the other things I do is I come through here and I update my columns as well. So a lot of this is actually all looking pretty good already. And I could just say update this to make it really intuitive. Total unit price, simple things like that. All of these things are recorded, remember. So you don't need to do anything too spectacular or too special around updating these every time. It's just making sure things are easily referenced. One thing that I really am against is abbreviations. So no spacing between names. So and you'll find this a lot, like especially if you're downloading data from a database or from a web-based system. It's always abbreviated. There's always some sort of odd wording around column names. And what you want to do inside of here, Because remember, inside the query editor, it's like a snapshot, like a screenshot of your data, is you want to try and clean those things up so that later on, it's so easy to reference from a modeling perspective and a DAX perspective. But that's not all as well. You've got to remember that when you create visualizations as well, then having good naming conventions allows you to quickly create axes with the right names, titles with the right names. All of these things are automatically generated within Power BI. And so if you have these underscores and things like that, you'll just be having to do these last minute fix-ups to all of your titles, all your axes, all of your tooltips, all of this stuff, right? And none of that, it makes no sense to do that when you can, you can come in here and make those adjustments very quickly and only once in the query editor, and then you're done. You don't have to do anything else. Okay? And so look, it's entirely up to you. This is just a best practice, which I highly recommend, and I just reiterate all the time because it just makes your life so much easier in so many different ways. From right from the start when you bring data in and you get that snapshot, that query, and then from there you can make the adjustments, and then it's pretty self-explanatory from there. It's so much easier for yourself and your colleagues to then go and reference the right things, the right tables, the right columns, the right measures, etc. Within your reports. And that's another key point. It's not just columns and tables; it's also measures. You want to make sure your measures are named really effectively too. Okay. Cool. So let's that just wraps up some best practice. Hopefully I've drilled that in enough. So I don't mention it too much more. But you'll see as we go on that I do this throughout. Everything is named very, very intuitively. Okay, let's move on. Okay, I'm just going to quickly go over two really simple formulas here just to show you what I mean by formula syntax, okay, and why this is just important to understand because it's slightly different to other formula languages you might be used to, like an Excel formula language, okay? So I'm just going to create two simple formulas here. I'm just going to show you how you need to think basically around formulas. Okay, so I'm just going to go new measure up here. So I'm just clicked in the sales table at the moment because I'm going to land my measure inside of here. I'm going to go new measure, and I'm going to call this one total sales, right? Okay, then I'm going to go sum. This is just a simple measure to start off with. And then I'm going to, you'll see here that it really explains things well inside these information boxes. So sum, column name, adds all of the column numbers in that column, okay? This is the key thing though around syntax. Within formulas, within DAX formulas, you need to think in tables and columns. There's no such thing as like a cell reference, especially in measures here, okay? So you need to focus in on what table you need to go and reference and then what column within that table you need to reference to go and sum up, right? And we need to add up all the numbers in the column. So the most logical place for us to go for that particular calculation is one we've just literally covered, but you see here it's named more intuitively, sales total revenue. So I can just, I know that this is what I need. I've just typed in, just started typing in revenue, and then I'm going to go tab, you see it's highlighted blue there, I'm just going to go tab, and then I'm going to place a bracket around that to end the formula, okay? But you see the main thing here, right, is that I'm not referencing anything in particular within that table. All I'm doing is I'm referencing the table and the column itself. And this is what you will do over and over and over again because this is all you can reference inside of Power BI, okay? You can't just reference the column, okay? So you always have to reference the table first and then the column. In some cases, you can just reference the table because that's what the formula asks for. For example, let's just go and calculate another measure. It's going to go to, I'm going to go total quantity, okay? And I'm going to use a formula called, and we'll go over these in a bit more detail. I just want to show you the syntax, right? Count rows is another formula that basically counts the number of rows in the table, okay? And so it's asking for just a table. So that, again, these information boxes are great. And then I can just reference the sales table, right? And then it actually is only going to let me reference the sales table. So I can start typing in the sales table like that, and then push enter, and now I have another measure which is counting up the total quantity we have sold, okay? Then I want to show you one more quick thing. I'm going to go total costs, okay? And I'm going to go and use a function called SumX here. We will cover this, don't worry. I just want to show you. You see here it says go and reference a table and then an expression. So returns the sum of an expression evaluated for each row in a table. So what SumX is, it's an iterating function. It's a really, really important function class to basically learn inside of Power BI. But I'll just show you what I mean by syntax. You see how I'm referencing a table. It's asked me. But this expression, I can put a measure inside of here. But what I can do is I can also reference columns within the table itself, okay? And so I'm going to go and reference the quantity column. So you see here I'm referencing the table, then the column. Then I'm going to reference, again, I'm going to go and find the total cost, or the total unit cost column. Okay, so you see here again, very intuitively named. I'm referencing the table and then the column, okay? And then that's going to give me my total costs. Okay, so don't get too concerned about if you don't understand these formulas just yet. We will dive into them, but this is just me just reiterating the point and almost the mind shift from a cell-based calculation to a table and column-based calculation. That's what it is all about inside of Power BI. Okay, so let's just quickly move on, and we'll come back to this stuff very, very soon in terms of more specifics around the formulas. Okay, here we're going to do a quick recap on measure groups, okay? So these are essential to organize your measures, okay, your DAX calculations, okay? And I want you to be using these really early on. If you start creating measures, which you will, if you're using Power BI, you need to be creating lots of measures, right? You will create more and more and more. You could ultimately get to 20, 30, 50 measures in your models. Some of my measures have more, some of my models, have in reports that have been developed, have even more than that. They have close to 100. So you can really get a very, very busy model in terms of measures. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to mix your measures with your tables of data, okay? So what you want to do is you want to create measure groups, okay? Now, to create these is very, very quick and easy. In my view, it should be a little bit easier, but there's just a few steps we need to implement to actually make this happen, okay? So the first thing you want to do is you want to go to Enter Data up here. We basically need to create like a dummy table, okay? And so I'm just going to create a really simple table with nothing in it, literally nothing in it. I'm going to call it key measures, and I'm going to go load, okay? So what this is going to do is going to bring this dummy model into my report, dummy table into my report, and so you see key measures is now located up here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these measures, I'm going to select them, and I'm going to move them to that particular table. Okay, so you see here, we have this home table, I'm going to move this to my key measures, okay? And then I'm going to select my next one, I'm going to move that to my key measures, and then I'm going to do the same for total sales, I'm going to move that to my key measures as well, okay? And so you'll see now over here that we have all three inside my key measures. What I need to do now is just delete this particular column. I'm going to totally delete it. okay? And then just to finish this off, I'm going to come up here to this show hide pane. I'm going to click it once, and then I'm going to click it again, and then now we have this, I call it the sort of double calculator, and this is our measure group, okay? And so this is just one, what you will find is that you will create more and more and more of these over time, and you use exactly the same process. And what I like to do is I like to divide up my measures into really intuitive groups so that they're so easy to reference later on. Because think about it, if you have 50 measures in your reports, you don't just want 50 measures to appear when you click on that, you want them to be grouped into certain things. And so you might have time comparisons, you might have moving averages, you might have cumulative totals, you might have budgeting analysis. It goes on and on and on and on. If you are able to review some of the showcase models that Enterprise DNA makes available, you'll see that there can be, you can have 6 to 8 groups, maybe more, depending on how detailed your model is, okay? And so you really want to be utilizing these measure groups quite extensively if you are building out lots of different measures, okay? They really do help from just an organization perspective, and just it makes things far more intuitive and seamless, and when you are referencing things like creating, you've got to remember when you're creating lots of visualizations, you need to use your measures inside of those visualizations. You need to know, you want to be able to very easily and quickly know where to go and find those details to make things, to speed things up in your development. Okay, quick and easy one there. Just one thing to just get a good habit around is just creating these measure groups and putting locating the correct measures within those specific groups. Okay, so what I want to do now, I just want to give you a quick overview of formatting your DAX formula, okay, and how you can do it, okay. Now I'm just going to quickly just try and set something up here where we can have a look at some results. So what I've done is just grab something from the sales table, and just a reminder, we have not done anything to the model just yet, which I know is a very essential part of or a key pillar on creating good high quality reports, right? But we will get to that. We'll fix it up. I'm just trying to give you some broad theoretical stuff here that is just essentially the absolute essentials before we go on any further. Okay, and formatting your formula effectively is one of those. And I'm just going to show you some just incredibly simple rules around how to do it. I have a philosophy where I don't try and overcomplicate things here. I just try and keep things really, really simple. Okay, so what I want to do here is I want to have a look at my total quantity, right? But I want to do something slightly more advanced. Like I want to have a look at my total quantity for a specific subset of customers and in a specific channel, right? So selling through a specific channel. Okay, so I'm going to write out that formula and I'm going to say, okay, so formula. I'm just going to call it formula example, okay? And I want to show you by doing this how important formatting things effectively is, okay? So I'm going to use a function of calculate. I'm going to add in my total quantity here. So I'm just going to go reference my measure. So you can reference measures with the measures. Just a reminder, this is just, we're going to go over this stuff. I'm just trying to show you some things around just formatting, okay? So total quantity, then I'm going to go filter, and then I'm going to go and look at my customers. So I'm going to look at my sales customers. So look at a sales table. Then I'm going to say I want my customer name index to be, let's say, greater than, say, 5. And I want my customer name index to be less than 20. Okay, then I want another filter here. I want to go through my sales, and then I only want the channel, which is equal to, say, export. Pretty sure export is one of our channels. Let's actually go wholesale, because I know that is one, wholesale. Okay, and so I see this a lot, right? So I can just push enter here, and I've now got a specific formula. But see, and I can bring this in and we can look at the result. So now I've got a far different result, right? And so if you think back to your Excel days, it's kind of like a sum formula or a sum product formula. But inside of Power BI, this is very, very difficult to understand when just looking at it like this, right? Especially when I see this with customers or on the Enterprise DNA support forum, I get confused as to what is going on here. I mean, I would kind of intuitively know, but I guess the first thing I would do is I would improve the formula, the formatting. Okay, I would improve the formatting because it is so much easier to understand DAX when it is improved. Okay, now all I'm recommending you do here is place different functions or different key functions on different rows. Okay, so this is far simpler to some of the more complex rules that you might find out there. There are a few. So there are some sites out there which have like specific rules around how you should format exactly. I'm not all about that. I'm just about keeping things simple where all I do is I indent things. So to get things down to a new row, all you need to do is hold shift and enter. So I indent things like this when there is something sort of a new key formula which is running some sort of calculation, right? And so you see here now that I've got calculate up here, and then I've got my filters down on a row by themselves indented, and then it's so much easier for me to read. I can just go calculate total quantity, filter. Okay, I'm filtering the sales table, but then I want to look at very specific customers in this customer set, and then I want to filter again by a specific channel called wholesale. And so in terms of readability, it is just so much easier to read it like this than as if everything's in one row. And this goes for if you're writing an if statement, if you're writing a really advanced formula like customer attrition or like new customers or lost customer type analytics. Or churn analytics. And this is where you can really start getting quite complex formulas. And the key thing, there's always an easier way. There's always a more simple and intuitive way to format your DAX formula than just having these mass formulas just planted down inside this formula box and almost unreadable. Okay. Literally all it takes is sometimes just putting things down to a new particular row. I mean, there's other things you can do. I just don't want you to think that there's only one rule here. There's many ways you can do this. And you could also, just as another example, you could also, for example, do this where you say, okay, I want things to be down like this, and then I might indent again like that. So say that could be easier for you to read as well. So that, and if you like it a bit that way, then that's fine too. To me, in terms of readability, that's exactly the same. But I'm happy for myself. I would be very happy with just something like this, where there's just some simple indentation down every single row, and then I'm done. Okay. There's always an easier way. And what you'll find in the next couple of videos is other ways that you can really simplify these things. You're using variables, using comments in your code. Okay, that's what we're going to cover next. But formatting is very important. Okay, that's something I just want to stress really, really highly in this video. Okay, let's move on. Okay, I want to cover here a really a great way to simplify your formula even more. I'm going to use the example we just used before, okay, because it enables us to really drill into it and create specific variables for, and to simplify our formula in a spectacular way. Okay, so you want to also make sure you're formatting things like how I'm going to format them here, because it makes it far more intuitively in terms of the way you might read it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is what you need to do when you're using variables is you need to use a specific syntax inside of this formula bar, right? Okay, so what you need to do is you first of all want to go down to a new line, and what I like to do is I first of all go VAR, so for variable. And the key thing with variables is that you've got to remember they're only like this measure specifically, not global variables. You can't do that at the moment inside of Power BI. That may change in the future, which would be really great. But at the moment, you can only a variable you reference within here can only be used within this particular measure. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to name my variable. I'm going to call this one customer min. Okay, then I'm going to equal this to 5. Okay, so basically I'm going to, instead of having this referenced inside of here, I'm going to actually reference it outside of here. Okay, then I'm going to create another variable. I'm going to call it customer max. Okay, and I'm going to make this one 20. Okay, then I'm going to create another variable. I'm going to call this one my customer channel. Okay, so variables have to be one word. They can't have spaces. You could have underscores like this if you wanted to, but I just like placing them as one name like this. And I'm going to go and call this one wholesale. Very similar to what I've got down below in the formula. Okay. Then I'm going to go down to this row here, and then I'm going to go return. And this is the other key part of writing variables inside of here. Okay. Actually, this is wholesale, isn't it? Okay, so then what you can do is when you have these variables inside of your measures, what you can then do is you can reference them below the return section. Okay, so instead of 5, what I can do is I can put customer min here, and guess what? They also come up in the IntelliSense, which is amazing. And then I can just go down to this customer min and put it in like that. And the colors are also very good, very intuitive. So I can just start writing in customer max. I can tab that, and then here, what I can do is I can then go customer channel. Okay. And then now I have exactly the same formula, but I have these variables at the top that I can reference and change in a really intuitive way. So I can just come here and I can put 10 instead of 5, right? And then for example, say you reference that similar thing multiple times, well then you only have to change it in one location. That's where variables really come in handy. But this is not all. This is just how you can sort of start things, right? What you can also do is you can reference entire tables like this. Okay. So check this out. I can go and I can call this one customer range, for example. Okay. Then I could actually lift this one from here up into here, because variables can be entire tables as well. And you can reference variables within variables. So you see here that customer min and customer max now are referencing, or is within a variable, but it is reference those variables within it. Okay. Then I can do this. I can go customer channel, right? And I can lift this one up into here like this. Okay. And then now I have this particular, this is a filter, or it's also called a table function as well. This is now embedded within a variable. And then check this out. What I can do down here is I can say, just reference my customer range and my customer channel in this particular form here. So you see how simplified this can be? Oh, that didn't work. Just give me a second. Let's figure out why. Oh, I know why. It's because I've named it exactly the same as that. So customer, let's just call it channel. We'll just call it channel. So just to simplify things. The error was actually relatively intuitive. I just glanced at it and I saw immediately that yes, you can't name variables exactly the same name. Okay, so you see now how simple this can be and how intuitive it can be if you follow a lot of the best practices that we've gone over. Naming conventions obviously key, and then the way that you set up your formulas. So you see how from how this started, at the beginning of the video, how much easier, how much simpler this is to understand from your perspective, or from anyone's perspective who might look at this in the future. So using variables is optional, but it is a very good way to simplify things when they get a little bit more advanced. Okay, so it's a combination of simplification and just also good formatting, and it just makes your life a lot easier, further on down the track, than if you didn't use this and you didn't use any best practices around formatting. Okay, so two good things to really have a good think about and to start implementing in your own development. Okay, let's move on. Okay, just a quick video here around ways you can comment in your formulas. Okay, and this can become very, very important from a continuity perspective within your organization, because you especially you want others to understand what you're doing. Okay, a lot of the things I've already discussed in previous videos here, they all assist in that immensely. Okay, but this is just another way that you can improve the experience for users and developers in your reports, and that's creating comments. Okay, in your particular formulas. Now, the way you can do it, you can also put these comments absolutely anywhere in this formula box, right? Okay, so a common area you might do it is at the bottom here, and all you need to do is you need to do 2 forward slashes. That's it, and then you can write out whatever you like. Okay, so then I can write, okay, this formula is a custom calculation for wholesale customers in a specific range. Okay, so I made a simple comment down there. You could also make a comment up here. This is a custom formula, right? So you can make a comment up here. You can make a comment literally anywhere. You can make a comment within a variable line. You don't want to go overkill. This is a channel filter. You don't want to go overkill here, but this is just another addition that you can make to your particular formulas. You ultimately you want to make things as intuitive as they can, just from a naming perspective, as you can from a naming perspective. Okay, because if you name your formula, like your measures well, if you name your variables well, if you just generally name things well throughout your entire model, then you shouldn't need that much commenting, right? But it is just a great way to fill in the gaps. Especially on far more advanced formulas, like showing what certain filters are doing or what certain context is within a formula. These are the sort of depths within which you can go into complexity within formulas themselves. So you need to sometimes explain things further as you become more advanced and more knowledgeable in terms of what's going on. Because you've got to remember, not everyone probably is going to be at your level once you get through this course, right? You're going to be at a very advanced level of Power BI, and so helping people out by writing simple comments like this can really go a long way. Okay, so just another easy and simple addition that just makes this whole environment around within Power BI and with creating measures that much more better for you. Okay, so simple stuff. Don't need to spend too much time on it. Let's move on to the next video. Okay, I just want to do a quick review of quick measures here, right? Okay, so quick measures are, as you can locate them on the ribbon here, just up in the home ribbon, are a way to, as the name describes, just a way to quickly create measures, okay? But there are some positives to this, but there is also some negatives which I don't really like about these particular formulas, okay? And I want to just briefly go through those. Okay, so all you need to do is click on that particular button or icon in the ribbon, and there's lots of different ways that you can utilize these, or you can create these, right? Over lots of different things. Okay, so you see here they've got a whole range of different things like averages per category, variance, min-max, filters, lots of time intelligence that you can do, totals, just simple addition, subtraction, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so there's lots of options here for you to create things. Now, right from here, I want to let you in on one key aspect of this. Yes, you can create measures from here very quickly, right? But if you do not understand what the measure is doing, then you will very likely get results that are wrong, and you might not even realize it. Okay, so it does, even though you can create things quickly here, it does not prevent you from having to understand what is going on with DAX. Okay. It is absolutely essential that you still have a solid and very, very strong understanding of DAX. And then what you'll find is when you do have that understanding, you can probably actually write things out quicker than actually using this. That's honestly what I find. Like, for example, when I'm creating reports, I never use this section because I can just create things so much quicker because I know what I need and I can just quickly write it. The IntelliSense is really good. I don't even need to write out things in full. I can just quickly go and reference things, go tab, and then I get my formulas really quickly. Okay. So, for example, say we wanted to create an average per category. So what it does is it calculates the average of the base value within the category. Okay, so I can then, say I want to calculate my average of total sales, I can drag that in, and then say, for example, I want the average of, say, the, let's go the channel, right? So I'm going to drag that into there. Okay, so it's going to average up the channel within whatever context I place it into. So I'm just going to go add that in. Okay, so total sales average per channel. Okay, so it does label it pretty well. Okay, but then let's go and have a look at the formula itself and just identify some issues straight away. The very first thing it does here is it doesn't actually set things up. It doesn't actually format the formula very well. That's one thing. I like to, some simple things. I like to have spaces between the brackets and the formulas, right? I think it makes things look a bit nicer, a little bit easier to read and understand, right? The other thing is that it uses these formulas that you like literally don't even need. So keep filters, right? This is a function inside of Power BI. I rarely use this function at all. You don't even need it. You don't even need it for this particular result. Like I'll bring it in here and like this. Right, so at the moment we're now getting the total sales average per channel. Okay, so what was the average sales by channel? So let's compare it to the actual sales. Right, so in this particular model, there's 3 channels. So basically, it's this divided by 3 essentially. That's because it's just averaging out by channel how much sales per warehouse code. Okay, so again, actually just talking through that shows me another thing that you need to understand is that you still need to really understand the context in which you're putting these formulas as well. That's the key. And so what is the total sales average per channel? It is determined by the initial context that we have in here. Okay, so that's another key thing about key measures that they don't even tell you. Then they put in formulas that you don't even need. Like you don't even need this keep filters. You also don't even need this calculate. And so if you were just starting out and you were trying to understand like what this is actually calculating, you would find it quite difficult because you probably don't know what these formulas are doing in that particular context to get that result. Okay, so that's why it's just so essential to have a true fundamental understanding of what DAX is actually doing first before you go and venture into using these quick measures. Then, as I say, you'll find you probably don't even need them. So I'm telling you some positives and negatives at the same time, but hopefully I'm sort of just making it clear that these quick measures don't really change the fact that you need to have a real strong understanding of DAX. So what I can do is I can actually take this out, don't even need it. Then what I would usually do is I would put some spaces inside of here. Then I don't need that as well. Then you don't even need this calculator around here. That's unrequired as well, just to get this formula working. And then what do we got? Actually, don't even need those around as well. Okay, and so this particular formula here, just formatted like this, actually achieves exactly the same result. There's no difference. Okay, and so that's one of my real negatives on quick measures is these just unrequired formulas that make it so much more complicated to understand what the formula is actually doing, what each individual part of the formula is actually doing. And then once you simplify things even more like this, then you can change the way that they look in terms of from a formatting perspective as well to make them more intuitive. I mean, probably if I was doing this myself, I would. If I was sort of just writing this out, I probably actually would have this sort of format like that, how I had it originally, because that's really easy to understand now. Because now if I was talking you through this, I would say, okay, well, the initial context is a warehouse code. I'm going to iterate. That's what, because average is an iterating function. I'm going to iterate through every single channel individually within that warehouse code. So I know that there's 3 specific channels. I'm going to calculate up how many sales are in each channel, and then once I've done that for the 3 channels, I'm then going to average up those 3 results, and that's what's going to give me this. Okay, so it's basically this divided by 3. This total sales divided by 3. Okay, so I would recommend, I don't want to go too much more in there. I've told you my feelings on quick measures. Yes, it's great and enables you to create things quickly with just a point and click and some dragging, but it doesn't help you in terms of understanding DAX and really truly understanding what's going on. Okay, and you have to. There's no way around it. You have to understand exactly what each part of the formula is doing. You almost need to visualize it, and so that theoretical understanding is just super key. Okay, let's almost finish this section. Let's move on, and I'll just tell you some key stuff about the data model. Okay, so one thing we haven't even touched on, which is absolutely essential to having DAX work effectively in your reports, is the model, okay? And so here is just where I want to just cover this just quickly, okay? Is we need to sort our model out. Now, these best practices are covered in a bit more detail in the Power BI workshop course, but we'll just do a very quick review. I'm just going to set them up really quickly. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to, first of all, just delete all of these relationships, just because Power BI is hopeless at guessing the right ones in a lot of cases. Okay, so I'm just going to come through here, just do some deleting. And then I'm going to quickly set these up in the way that I want, right? So I have my lookup tables up the top, like so. My fact tables down the bottom, so that would be my budget and my sales, like so. And then budget weightings is actually a supporting table, so I'm going to put that on the side there, and then my measures out the side. So this is just a really common way I set things up. And then what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to then create the relationships, right? So you obviously need to work this out a little bit more in your own data, but I know that the index is going to be joined to the delivery region index, and I've selected the wrong one there. So very important that I just double click on the relationship and then change it. And you'll see I've got a 1 to me, which is right. and then I need to join my products index up to my, so I'm just going to click and drag. I'm going to drag that into my product description index, and you'll see that's correct now. Then I'm going to go customer index, and I'm going to drag that across to my customer name index, and I'm just going to leave the budgets by itself at the moment. Okay, and you'll see here that and this is something that I do a lot, is that I don't worry too much about the size of my tables or anything like that. I'm just more concerned about the shape of my model here. Okay, I want to make sure that I can visually understand that I have my lookup tables at the top that are going to come down and filter my fact tables down the bottom. All right. Then you'll notice though there's one key table which is missing, and that's the date table. Okay, so let's have a quick look at how we can generate a date table. So you will find this text file inside of your resource pack, right? Okay, so let's just do a quick recap around how to create this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all of this code, right? I'm going to come back into the query editor. So I'm just going to click on that. So I'm back into the query editor now. I'm going to go new source blank query, right? Then I'm going to jump up to the advanced editor and then paste all that code in. Okay, so this is just a quick revision of how to do that. Then I'm going to go push done. And then this is going to give me the parameters that I need. And I'm going to go first to the first, say 2017, and then I'm going to go, just going to go first to the first 2021, something like that. Okay. Then my FY start month is 7, and I'm going to go invoke. And so then this gives me my date table. I'm going to turn this into dates. So you can create this really quickly, right? And then I'm going to call this one the dates query, right? You can create these things so quickly. And then now I have my detailed date table in here. And then I can make some simple changes. And then I can go month and year. I'm just going to do this quickly because this is covered elsewhere. But this is how quickly you can create it once you get used to it. So quarter and year like that. Okay. So simple changes like that. And now I have my dates table. Then what I would also do, just because I'm a stickler for best practices, what I would also do is I would probably go move to group here. I'm just going to select my key ones here. There's just some really quick fix-ups. So I go move to group. I'm going to call a new group here. I'm going to call it the data model. And so now I've grouped that. I'm going to put my key measures into a measure groups, because I know I'm going to create more of those over time. I know that this budget weighting is actually a supporting table. So I'm actually going to call these supporting tables. You see, I'm just implementing a lot of just like really simple best practices around naming conventions and things like that. Then I'm going to call this one, this particular query, I'm going to call it a parameter query. Okay, so now I've grouped all of these specific things, and then I can drill in and drill out into these specific things very quickly within my groups here. Okay, so I'm just going to go close and apply just to quickly finish this off around the data model, because then you've got to remember that we've got to fit in the date table here, right? So it's created this crazy relationship that we don't even want, which is very, very annoying. And then I'm just going to fit this into here because I want exactly the same shape as I've got before. And then in this particular case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, at this point, I'm going to just add it to the order date. Okay, so I'm going to have my relationship between my date table and my date column and my order date column inside my sales table. Okay, so the key thing here, right? The key thing here is that, and this flows into this concept of context that I mentioned right at the start, is that context is derived by your model in most cases, right? It's derived by what's in your table, but then also the filters and the relationships that you have within your model. Okay, and so DAX will work based on what filters and environment what filters you apply to it and what environment the formula is in. Okay, and this can be adjusted and manipulated by, first of all, what relationships you have in here, but then what actual formulas you use. Okay, but here is just how I set up all my models. No matter what scenario we're dealing with, no matter what scenario you are dealing with, you want a similar type of shape to your model. Okay, just make things a hell of a lot easier later on down the track when you can quickly identify, what filters or what slices you've got or what context you've got on your particular reports or your particular results. I might say, because every individual result inside of Power BI using DAX is calculated individually based on the environment in which it is in. Okay, so just again some simple things to do and implement in your models that will make a big difference. Okay, we're almost at the end of this particular introductory section, so let's just round it off with one more video. Okay, so here I just want to do a really quick video on the importance of practice with DAX. Okay, the only way you can really learn DAX is to apply it practically, to actually do it, to actually practice. Just understanding the theory and reading books on DAX or even just watching videos on DAX is not going to be enough. You actually need to use it. You need to see how it changes or results change based on the various different aspects of utilizing formula, like the context in which formula is put into, the environment in which the calculation occurs, the different ways you can structure your formulas, the different formulas that you can use. All of these things can only be learned by actually seeing how it works, by actually bringing things in and changing certain aspects of your formulas. For example, like you'll see that we've created some formulas here, right? But what happens when we go and totally change the context of the calculation? Maybe instead of warehouse code, I want to put product in there, and I need to see, okay, well, how are these formulas interacting with the new context in which I have placed that formula into, right? And then the same can be said for, say, we wanted to run some time type analysis. Using our date column or our date table. Okay. Now we're going to go through a lot of examples, during the rest of this course. Okay, but I also just want to reiterate how the online portal is set up for you to just have unlimited amount of practice you could ever want, right? Okay, so we're obviously in this particular course here, but there's the other courses enable you to utilize formulas in multiple different ways, in multiple different scenarios, in multiple different patterns and formula combinations. And that's what, say, solving analytical scenarios does. It really dives into how you can combine lots of formulas together to get really interesting analysis. Then there's some dashboarding creation examples here, from start to finish, how you can create all the formulas from scratch. There's some analysis on scenario, some work on scenario analysis, advanced analytics. So this takes it even further to how you can create some of the more advanced calculations inside of Power BI. And then there's also all of the events. There's also the resources. So you'll see here you've got practice data that you can utilize. All of the techniques we go over here can be used across any data set, any model that you create. So it's just a matter of digging in and applying these concepts to lots of different environments, to your own scenarios as well. Just keep applying and applying and applying, and then you will so again, there's hundreds of different ways you can see how DAX is used, and you can actually test and apply it. You can download all the resources, and you have access to all of these courses through membership, right? And so there's all the opportunity you need to practice once we get through the theoretical. We're going to cover a bit of theory from here on out, but always in a practical way. And then I want you to go and take that and then apply it in your own environments, in your own scenarios, and that's how you're really going to gain a true and thorough understanding of how DAX actually works. Okay, so let's move on, and we'll move into the next section.